I think the most moving memory is the first time my wife met Martin and Coretta King. He invited us to hear him at a talk in Baltimore and drive him back with Coretta from Baltimore to Washington, and then to have some talking together. And on the way back, he and I were strategizing about what would Martin Luther King do if he's going to be a leader that's bringing Gandhi and his ideas into America. And we heard in the back seat Coretta saying, you know, I have a nightmare that at the end of the road that Martin has chosen, he's going to be killed. And that nightmare keeps coming back. And he turned around and said, Corey, I've told you to stop dreaming that nightmare. That's not the point. I didn't choose this. They asked me to chair the Montgomery bus boycott. They came and asked me, and I said yes. And then he hummed a spiritual. It was something like, and the Lord came by and asked, and my soul said yes.
In 1957, when I was 17 years old, I wrote Martin Luther King Jr. a letter. Told him I wanted to attend a little college about 10 miles from my home, and this school didn't admit black students. He wrote me back and sent me a round-trip Greyhound bus ticket and invited me to come to Montgomery to meet with him. But I went off to another school, and he got back in touch with me and suggested when I was home for spring break to come and see him. So in March of 1958, I traveled to Montgomery. I walked through the doors of this little church, and I saw Dr. King standing behind a desk. And he said to me, are you the boy from Troy? Are you John Lewis? I was so scared I didn't know what to say or what to do. And I said, Dr. King, I'm John Robert Lewis. I gave my whole name. He was so inspiring. He was so moving. And somehow, in some way, I wanted to become part of that movement, and I did. Martin Luther King Jr. was a man of service.
Martin was an interesting person. He was very committed to the cause of justice. He was committed to the church and to good relationships between the brothers and the sisters. And he was very informed and intelligent. So it was easy to have many moments that you could recall. But I remember on a number of occasions he would think about very seriously his life and his work. And he was being shadowed and harassed, and occasionally he would say, Joe, I don't think I'll live to be 40. And I would say, oh, come on, man, you're gonna live with a beard reaching down to the floor. You'll live a long time, no question about it. But he was right. He died at 39. And but he never let fear of death disturb his momentum. He stayed focused, and he stayed committed, and he took chances. He lived daringly.
I was one of 4 6-year-old children, girls, to integrate the public school system here in New Orleans in 1960. Well, being 6 and not really understanding what was going on at the time during the Civil Rights Movement, my parents didn't explain anything to me. I always say to people that it would be really, really hard to explain to a 6-year-old child what I was about to encounter going to school that day. So the only thing that they said to me is that you are going to go to a new school and you better behave. And that was the extent of it. So I had absolutely no idea what was happening at the time. I understood that it was important, but it didn't really hit me until I saw the Norman Rockwell painting. And I realized that it wasn't something that just happened in New Orleans, but it was something that people all across the country, all across the world, actually recognized, especially through the painting. And I always say that the lesson I took away was a lesson that Dr. King tried to teach all of us. And that was that we should never look at a person and judge them by the color of their skin. That is the lesson that I learned in that classroom at 6 years old, simply because I crossed a picket line, a mob every day for a whole year. They were all white, screaming, yelling, threatening to harm me. And yet every day when I entered the building, there was a woman there to greet me, and she was also white. And I remember not really knowing what to expect from her, if she was going to be exactly like the people outside. But she did everything she could to make my day filled with fun. And I loved learning. She not only taught me, but she read stories to me. We played games and we did music and everything, to the point that I never missed a day that whole year. I knew that if I got past the mob and inside of the building, I was going to have a great day, and it was because of her. So she showed me her heart, and I began to realize that there was no way she was like the people outside. I couldn't judge her the same way. And so I believe at that moment, I learned the lesson that Dr. King died trying to teach us. And that is, as I said, you cannot look at a person and judge them by the color of their skin. That shaped me into who I am today.
And his day shall be a day of service, not just a day of celebration, but a day on and not a day off. That we should find a way to encourage all Americans to go out and give something back.
And of course, we all know that most people serve and take action because somebody asked. And this is a day when we're asking people to do what Martin Luther King would do, to make this holiday the pursuit of the public happiness of governing ourselves.
But I would encourage people to look around and find places where they can spend, not just on the holiday, but after the holiday. Where can they enlist that can help the most people and help people who need help the most? I think that would be a great service to Martin and would make Martin very happy.
If you want to be important, wonderful. If you want to be recognized, wonderful. If you want to be great, wonderful. But recognize that he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. That's a new definition of greatness. By giving that definition of greatness, it means that everybody can be great. Because everybody can serve.